Liquorland are proud partners of the Pies Nation podcast for another season of footy. Great to have Liquorland on board. A good year for them to come back because we're doing pretty well on the field, but great to have Liquorland too.
Yeah, absolutely, Nico. Liquorland, very good sponsors of ours, and yeah, every week it's been great to head down there and get a few beers to watch the Pies.
Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online to pick up all of your favourite drinks. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Hello everybody, welcome to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 17 of Season 5, or episode 130, if you're counting from the beginning. Another unbelievable performance from this incredible football club. Collingwood defeat Adelaide by just 2 points in yesterday's huge clash at the MCG. But more importantly, it puts us back where we belong, on top of the ladder. We'll go through all the key moments from that tight finish, get some of your thoughts about the game and the Pies in general, as always, on AskPiesNation, and chat VFL after another victory with that squad as well. But joining me in the studio, we had 4, and then we had 3, and now it's just 2. But it's Luke Humphries that joins me at the studio. Welcome, Luke.
Hello. Well, last week I couldn't get a seat at the table at the start. Now
it's all empty.
Seats everywhere. So I'm glad I've made it here and given you some company, Nico. But yeah, fantastic after yesterday's win. I wouldn't say it was a ripper performance or anything like that, but an exciting win nonetheless, down to the wire. Yet again, the Pies testing our heart rates a bit.
Yes, and should add, your 99th episode on the Pies Nation podcast.
See how long I last on 99. Will I straight to 100 next week or get a bit nervous?
Nervous 90s. No, it's all right. It's not 130 like me anyway. That's all right. Anyway,
I can't believe I've missed 31 episodes. I feel horrible.
That's stress, mate. It's a good effort. Hopefully we can keep going long enough.
A few too many holidays, a few too many COVID layoffs.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But you're right. It was, I wouldn't say a perfect performance, that's for sure. I've got to say, we were looking fairly comfortable at half time, and that second term, we were able to really put Adelaide on the back foot and get us into a position where we could go on with it. But all of a sudden, you just didn't expect the Crows to come out firing as well as they did. They had their hands on the footy, they were winning clearances, and they kicked 7 consecutive goals to really put the pressure back on us. Fortunately, we are a good enough team in the final term to get on top, but there are some concerns that come from a term like that, where it just was so offensive from Adelaide, where it really made us question what we were trying to do, because we just, as we said, couldn't get our hands on the footy.
And haven't really seen a quarter like that under Craig McRae, and it was a bit worrying. And like you said, at halftime you go in, and I felt that first quarter was a real arm wrestle, and they probably had the better of it, but we were managed to keep their scoreboard not too bad, and I think we actually had the lead in the end. And then the second quarter got our game going, and I was like, this is the Collingwood we haven't really had for a few weeks. Got it going, got the scoreboard pressure on, and at halftime I'm like, oh, this will be a nice, 5, 6, maybe more goal victory, and cruise to the finish line. Then halfway through the third, it was like, oh my God, they're back within 10, they're in front now, and then they got to about 10 points ahead, and going to 3/4 time, like, understanding we've been in this position before, I honestly wasn't too stressed about it, knowing I felt comfortable that we were going to get the game back on our terms. But Adelaide were just flying, and we weren't able to put a halt to it until the fourth quarter started. And I thought Beau McCreary, when he come on at the start of the fourth,
big
I think he laid a big tackle or got involved very early in that fourth and sort of set the tone for the rest of that quarter. And we were able to get the win in the end. It was pretty tough in those last few minutes, but having the lead and being able to stop the ball movement from Adelaide completely, knowing that, we just keep it down here and we'll win the game.
Look, I agree with you, because it did seem as though that you get to 3/4 time, you're like, okay, we'll reset, we'll come out in this last quarter and get up. And I had the same feeling as you about we should win this, until I reckon Taylor Walker's 5th goal, when he was out the back and caught on Braden Maynard and he kicked it truly. I thought, okay, we're going to have to defend really hard here for the next 2.5 minutes to try and get over the line. And there were a couple of close calls in those last couple of minutes. So, very fortunate to get a win like that. It would have been really disappointing, I felt, if we had have dropped that game, considering what happened with the Melbourne clash. You're coming off the bye, some big tests to come up over the next month or so for us as well. So, really crucial for us to get the 4 points there. So glad we did. Let's get to the pie that caught your eye. A few names to choose from here, I'm sure. Very keen to see which direction you went here, Lukey.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a couple just quickly.
Couple?
I want Johnny Noble.
You're going to take all mine, are you?
I want Johnny Noble for his last few minutes. I thought he was huge. Laid that big tackle and just getting himself involved in some key moments at the death. But Tommy Mitchell, my other pie that caught my eye, he was just a workhorse all day. 27 disposals, 11 kicks, 5 marks, 7 tackles, a goal with that as well. Just felt like he was a part of a lot early on, especially getting himself involved and just crucial with his in and under to get the clearance out. So, yeah, Tommy Mitchell, he's having a really good season and probably been the recruit of the year almost. So, yeah, loving the way he's going about it. And he continued that yesterday.
Yeah, he's been awesome, particularly with the goal out of the side. He's had to step up a little bit. So,
yeah,
been very impressive. The pie that caught my eye this week was Isaac Quainer. He was immense in that back 50, rebounding, intercepting, kept Rochelle to 3 behinds. Now, of course, it might be a different conversation if he kicks 3 goals, but nonetheless, he had a Collingwood high of 8 marks, 15 touches and 12 kicks at 87% disposal efficiency, 9 intercept possessions, 375 metres gained, 6 rebound 50s, 11 pressure acts and 5 tackles. I asked the question, Luke, can Isaac Quainer make the squad of 40 in the All-Australian?
It's insane because I reckon after about a month, people were questioning whether he's in our best 22, and he's really turned the tables on that. He's a definite contender. He's got a few even magpies just to get past still, I think, to get there. But yeah, like you said, he's turned his season around, and he's playing exceptional footy at the moment. Him and Noble running that back line. You trust those two to save the day nearly every week, and they're doing it week in, week out. So, yeah, Quaynor, if he keeps going, you never know.
Yeah, he's just been remarkable, I feel, because he's added, we know that he's got pace and he's great at rebounding from defensive 50, but it's the contested marking for me that has really elevated his game to the next level. He's got so much confidence to go up with the flight and take really strong pack marks, win one-on-one contests, lay really big tackles. I feel like, I don't know, it might have been a fly thing because at the end of last year, he had a pretty poor final series, as did a couple of others. And as you mentioned, the first month of this year, he wasn't really playing that well. A lot of question marks over his place in the side. You know, he had the likes of Markov coming in and a few others that were looking to take his place. All of a sudden, he's been able to turn that around and produce some exceptional football. And the only reason I asked that question about the All-Australian is just because, you know, the back 6 is pretty much set, you would think, but he's just playing such an underrated role, taking some of the more dangerous forwards in the competition, his ability to just get that ball moving forward. He understands the game plan so well. He can always find targets, you know, highlighted by that 87% disposal efficiency he had on Sunday. So, yeah, he's been terrific, and it's awesome to see the development he's had in this side.
It looks as if he's just really matured as a footballer. He's found his spot at the top level, knows his role, and has a great sort of back 6 to work with. And they're just working really well together. Defensively, I thought we got found out a little, particularly in that third quarter yesterday. But in terms of
but he wasn't one of them, you felt.
Yeah, but and in terms of us actually moving the ball from D50, he's a critical part of that. And I feel like once we've got the ball back in our hands, that movement is flowing really well, and he's a massive part of that. So, yeah. But like you said, out of the defensive 50 that got found out a bit, I thought Murphy was probably the one, particularly, but Quaynor stood his own.
Before we get to more individual highlights from the actual game, I want to talk about the match itself, because that last quarter for me was so intense. Now, we had a record crowd against Adelaide in a home and away game, which in itself is just amazing. And if anyone's questioning how big this football club is, you just got to look at these crowd figures this year. It's exceptional. But such a finals-like atmosphere in that final term, particularly when we got on a roll. Now, it helps when Adelaide try to poke Mason Cox. That always makes things a little bit more interesting. But both sides registered above average on the pressure rating scale, but also I think it's 43 tackles combined between both sides in the last quarter alone. There's teams that don't get 43 tackles for games, yet both sides really came to the party. And look,
Carlton.
I don't even want to bring them up. You know, the Crows are an outstanding football team. This was always going to be a danger game, and they deserve a final spot alone on the way to me playing this year. But for us to have stood up once again, played a minutes as McRae has continued to stress to his team, it's phenomenal viewing, and it's so impressive to know that in those moments, like 11 of the last 15 games that we have been behind at three-quarter time for us to win, that's exceptional. That's unheard of. It's incredible. So, yeah, for us to know that that's going to come from that team, whether we win or lose really in the end, is, brilliant to watch. And I'm sure as a player, it'd be even better to be a part of.
Well, Taylor Adams spoke about it last week. And yesterday it was, again, like taking it, being at the ground and taking it all in, that atmosphere, how loud it got. And when Cox, that whole incident was happening, like it was just insane. And there was a lot of Adelaide supporters there as well. So it was really that big finals intensity atmosphere. But also we might look back and go or even today thinking we've undersold what a win, like how good that win was, coming up against a really good football side in Adelaide, who gave absolutely everything to us yesterday. And we had them earlier in the season, got them by a point that day. Yesterday, 2 points. I think it was last year we got them by 3. It was 3 points. So it's just funny how it's gone like that. But 65,000. I think it was 10,000 above the next best between the two clubs ever. So home and away match. So just insane. And we'll get to the crowds later because we don't really have anyone coming on because it was so above what even our fans predicted. Just a huge turnout by the Collingwood Army and really showing that we are the biggest in the land.
And I feel like they had a massive say in the game, let's be honest here, because to have an atmosphere and an experience like that and knowing that they're behind your back, and Taylor Adams is going to say this much better than I am right now, but it does make a huge difference, and it really gets you pumped up and excited to know that, hey, they're behind us here, let's get on a roll. And it did. Harvey Harrison kicks a goal within the first 2 minutes of the last quarter. Everyone's pumped. They know, oh, here we go, we're coming here. And yes, Adelaide had their moments. They were able to respond pretty quickly. They pretty much were on top for the last few minutes of the game, but doesn't take away from the fact that it has such a massive influence on the team. So awesome to see. I want to ask you about a bit of a quirky one for mine, because as the game was about to start and Darcy Moore went up to take the toss, he won it and decided to kick against the wind. It seemed like there was a good 3 to 4 goal breeze in that game for most part of it, but he won the toss and decided to kick against the wind. Now, is that telling you that not only do we trust ourselves in the last quarter, but with the wind behind our backs, we might be able to make this a really good shot? And in turn, did it play a small role in Adelaide's big third quarter?
Well, I didn't really think about that because I didn't know that had happened. So that's really interesting. And is it almost a ploy to go, well, let's put ourselves in that position to know we can do it? It's going to be a position we might have to end up in down the track throughout the year. So, and we've seen it already in the first half of this season. So, interesting, and definitely something I reckon Fly and Moore have conjured up together. Let's make this even harder than it had to be, and prove that we can still do it. And I didn't watch Fly's presser or listen to it, but a few fans have commented about certain things that he said. We don't have to be so worried about going out and winning by 5-6 goals, because as long as we're getting the 4 points, we're trying a lot of different things within games, from game to game, to really try and work out what our best 22, 23 look like, positional-wise as well, and sort of game plan, tactic stuff on top of that. So as long as we can keep banking those 4 points, we're going to put ourselves in a position where we can experiment a little. And you might see that third quarter yesterday and go, a bit worrying, but maybe there was something in that. Maybe that, the coin toss, the wind, but a few other things at play as well, potentially.
So then, can I ask, so all that being said, and of course there's so many factors as to why we got the win, but what went so wrong in the third quarter? Because it seemed so un-Collingwood-like to what we've witnessed over the last 12 or so months. We couldn't get our hands on the football in the middle. We were getting outmarked in our back line. I think Darcy Moore had a pretty disappointing day, one of his I guess, poorer days in the last, 3 or 4 weeks. But nonetheless, it still hasn't taken away from his great season. But yeah, it just seemed as though they were having everything going their way in terms of their ability to win the ball, hit up targets inside 50. They were so efficient going through the corridor. We just gave them so much space. We were allowing them so much opportunity to move the ball quickly like we usually would. What do you feel like was the biggest concern you took out of that third quarter alone?
Well, they were just smashing us everywhere. And like you just said, out of the middle, smashing us, moving the ball with ease. I felt like our pressure dropped off completely. And there are a few stages or passages of play where I'm like, thinking, gee, we look like West Coast against Sydney.
No one's looking like West Coast. Come on.
It just looked real lackluster for a bit there, and that's kind of where I think I might have said earlier or spoke to you before the episode where it's the first time I've kind of seen that underfly, and I was a bit sort of shocked and kind of going, a bit worried here. I know we've had and I said it to a few mates before the game and a few people I spoke to about before the game, like, I don't think we're going that well, to be honest, right now. I think we've had a pretty lackluster 4 to 5 weeks, and today's an important day just to get some form back. And that first half was like, we're back. We're playing that brand of footy we had in the first month of the year, and then it sort of all went downhill in that third quarter, and we dropped off completely. Our back line, we found out Murph as well as Moore. I thought potentially we might have made the mistake with bringing Howe in instead of leaving Frampton there as that big body. I did think Howe had a good day, but was it the right move for this week? Could it have been a mistake if we did lose the game? Because Tex I don't think he had a goal at halftime, and he finished with 5, so he just destroyed us in that second half and was getting it at ease.
Look, it was hard because it was the easy option to say, gee, why didn't we play Billy Frampton? And fair point, because the games he's played have been terrific this year, particularly in that back line as well. So I think bringing Jeremy Howe in was still the right call, and I thought he was pretty important for us throughout the afternoon. He finished with 20 touches, and it was great to see him just back in general, even trying to fly for a couple of marks, which was awesome.
Because he was down, our defence was down towards where I was sitting, and he had a few early big contests he had to go up for, stood his own, and it's just one of those. I don't know if you watched his the little clip the Collingwood Footy Club put out through the week with him and his family, and
it was
him
awesome.
speaking on like not even knowing if he could do normal things again, let alone just getting back to play. So I was with him in a few of those moments, just a bit like scared, landing back on the ground, and he copped a big tackle as well early. But he had that. He went up and took a nice little specky later on in the day, and found his way. I don't think it wasn't a mistake to play him, but potentially at the loss of having Frampton not out there, was it the right decision? Turns out, we got away with it, but is Frampton needed back in that back six to really shore things up, to let Murphy more not be so responsible for being on the number one key forwards?
Yeah, see, I think Frampton needs to come back into this team. It's the whole reason we recruited him in the first place, to have him, Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy. I don't think it's too tall, in my opinion. And if it is, I don't mind the idea of Jeremy Howe moving up the ground. There were times in the game yesterday he was playing on the wing. And I think even in that last few minutes of the game, that's exactly where he was planted. So, he's got such great smarts with the footy, Jeremy Howe. It wouldn't be a bad thing to see him move up, play a wing half-forward role, if that allows Billy Frampton to come back into that team. I don't think it's too tall at all. We see a lot of teams play with, tall defenders. They're not all going to be required at times, but particularly with an opponent of Adelaide, we know can get on a roll. Darcy Fogarty was one that also had a really strong game in their forward 50, so definitely one to keep an eye out for, I think, with that. But speaking of Jeremy Howe, let's get through some individual performances, because we had some terrific ones to look at back from. We're going to give Nick Dacos all the praise he deserves, even if trolls on social media don't want to give him that. Taking nothing away from Jordan Dawson, who I think was outstanding and almost won that game on his own back from what he was able to do throughout the ground. But for people to dismiss quickly how incredible Nick Dacos was on Sunday, they're kidding themselves, because for someone of his ilk to have 37 touches, 8 clearances, 14 contested possessions, 9 score involvements, 23 pressure acts, 375 metres gained, 5 tackles, plus an important goal in that final term as well to keep things moving for Collingwood. It's absurd numbers, and he is just doing whatever he wants in that football field. When he is not being accounted for by the opposition, he is a marvel to watch, and there is every reason to suggest that he can do better things.
Well, yesterday I thought was almost up there with his best ever game. I thought he was just exceptional, and the numbers say it all, but just the things he's able to do with the footy, the little handballs, the little steps, the little movements within tight spaces. Anyone who says he's not tough is kidding themselves, because he's in and out of there without a hand being placed on him, because he's just so good. But even he's throwing himself in the midfield constantly now. And, yeah, he's handling himself incredibly well. His ball movement's exceptional. I just thought that was up there with one of his best games of his career. And like Dawson single-handedly nearly won Adelaide the game without Dacos, Nick. I don't think we would have won that yesterday. So, yeah, another huge one. But Josh as well.
Oh, of course,
he's just going from strength to strength and will constantly fly under the radar, unfortunately, due to his brother. But he's just having an exceptional season as well, and played a critical part in yesterday's win as well.
Lock him a spot in the All-Australians, surely, on that wing. He's got
this whole Collingwood team's in there at the moment. You got to, if Nick's getting in there, but Josh, you got to put Josh in there at the moment and play him on the wing. He's the best winger in the game, in my opinion, at the moment. He gets involved everywhere, gets involved on the score sheet, and he's just doing everything. 33
touches at 81%, and he went for 604 metres gained. Exceptional numbers. He's not wasting the football by any stretch.
He had 5 minutes through the second term, because I looked up, geez, already 15. He was pretty huge early, and then Nick, as the game went on, Nick just got himself involved, and I don't know if they were maybe potentially trying to tag him a bit early or give a bit of attention, but he just got into the game as it went on and was able to do his thing.
How's this for a stat? Both Dacos boys, 22 touches at 100% disposal efficiency in the first quarter. So you talk about being on form early. That's remarkable.
That's
2 plays like that.
It's insane and really sets the tone when you got two brothers, and the way they find each other out in the field. Nick he'll have crows or opposition players all around him, and somehow he'll just find Josh over there. Josh all by himself over there.
Yep.
But I think it was, did Nick not have a kick out yesterday?
No, I think he had a couple. Well, actually, good question.
I don't know if I'd read it wrong or I didn't really look into it too closely, but he either didn't have many or he didn't have any at all, because I think that's one thing that opposition fans have been trying to use to discredit him is, he's had 10 kickouts, so there's 10 disposals.
You're right, not a single kickout.
So he's had 37 without a single kickout.
He was very handball happy, but again, they were efficient handballs. He wasn't just giving them to anyone. Yeah,
they're not little dinky handballs that are selling into trouble or turnovers. They are finding spots that no other player's finding. So, exceptional game.
Shout out as well. I thought Braden Maynard had a pretty important game too. Hopefully his injury at the end isn't too serious to look into. But 27 touches, a game high 10 intercept possessions, 6 marks, 7 rebound 50s, and 481 metres gained in a day when the back six were sort of caught out of touch. I think Braden Maynard stood pretty tall and was able to have such a strong influence in getting that rebound game going. So shout out to Bruz. I think he's starting to settle himself into this team as well.
Yep, absolutely. And shout out to Tay. He had that shot, and I sent you off the video. Tay's kicked it for the pod, and then they went to the score review, and oh no, he might have missed this. But I thought Tay had a decent day as well. It's similar to Tom Mitchell, just getting himself in and under, tough footy, doing the hard stuff, and just working all day. So I thought Tay had a decent day out as well.
My little highlight as well to just mention on this pod is Bobby Hill for that awesome second quarter goal that he kicked to start it all. Highlighted his work ethic. I thought he was exceptional. He was taking bounces. He could have gone all the way himself. Did the unselfish thing. Gave it off to Elliott, who tried to get Johnson into the game. He dropped the mark, but Bobby Hill right there front and centre snapped it.
It's the follow-up. Yep. That's all we want from Bob, if he can contribute in that way. But obviously he wants to be unselfish and pass. He could have well and truly just gone himself, but does the unselfish thing. But it's the follow-up and the hard work after that. He's doing the flashy things, but he's also working hard for it as well, and he deserved that goal.
And Coxie, I know you've always been a big fan of his game, Luke, but 2 massive goals in that final term to get us rolling. Match winner.
And it's not just what he does, it's the impact that he brings to opposition players and bringing the crowd into the game. You can't fire him up, because it's going to go against you every single time. It gets him into the game, gets him up and about, and it gets the Collingwood crowd chanting that USA, and that gets, obviously we've heard the players speak about it, that gets them up and about. So he's actually putting together a pretty incredible year, considering he didn't know if he had a spot in this side, sort of at the start of the year and definitely in back end of last year. So he has to be in this 22 or 23 come finals time, because he's just that big game player who can get the crowd going. But as well as that, he done a lot of early work yesterday, little taps, little sort of things that other players can't do, that he's just getting himself involved. And as well as that, along the ground as well. He's able to bend over, pick up the ball, and he's not just a liability once it gets to ground. So
no, not at all. Think about some of the players we've just mentioned there with Coxie, Maynard, Taylor Adams. These are not top 3, 4, 5 caliber players in our team. Nathan Buckley spoke about this a little bit on SEN this morning about how those bottom 6 players in that team are the reason we're winning games, because everyone plays their role so well. You look at McCreary coming onto the field, having an instant impact straight away. Harvey Harrison getting onto the score sheet as well. Darcy Cameron also having an underrated game, I felt. Even though Riley O'Brien probably got him at times, Cameron was still so important. Took some big marks in that last term to help set up Coxie, particularly for one of them. These are plays that are so crucial to sides that have gone on to win premierships. And don't worry, the leader's still on. But I feel like everyone is so in tune with the way we want to play our football. And when it's go time, it doesn't matter who's in the firing line. They are always there, ready to give their absolute all. And I just love seeing that that's the mentality and the ethic that we've brought onto this club.
Yeah, and there's not been many weeks this year where we've come on and sort of called out many players at all. Everyone's contributing incredibly well. Oleg Markov, another that's a part of that bottom, sort of might be the unlucky one come sort of finals time, but he's not doing anything wrong, and well and truly will deserve his spot if he does end up in the side down at the back end of the year. So I just thought he had a couple of really big efforts yesterday, sort of to work hard to get the ball down the field or move it around. But yeah, he's doing nothing wrong. Hoskin Elliott again. Never stops working. So yeah, there's not many you can call out in this side. Probably, I'd say the only one for yesterday, you get a bit frustrated with, is Ash.
Yeah, I was about to bring him
up. He comes across like he looks potentially lazy at times, whether that's just his demeanour, body language, but just when he has that potential, like he had a few yesterday where he could have taken that really big mark and set things up, and he just goes through the hands, and then you look around, he's kind of just walking around and not really pushing himself like everyone else is at the moment. And when you look at anyone that to go out at the moment, he's probably the one where you go, well,
yeah. See.
But he brings that X factor that, like a Cox can, that he can turn it on, kick a banana, snap it from anywhere. He did have a good long range goal yesterday as well. So
that's what I was going to mention, because for me, Johnson seems like such a confidence player, and it's what we always used to talk about with Coxie. You get on early, you take a few marks, a couple of goals, you're on board, and you see that goal exactly. It's just perfect, exactly what Johnson can bring to the table, but it didn't seem to translate to any of his efforts around the ground. He struggled to get involved in contest. He doesn't seem to be too keen to get involved in some of those situations, which, again, I don't know if it's body language, something we don't know. It is a little bit of a concern, because I don't know if it doesn't have the belief in himself that he can, get to the heights that we saw him at so many times last year. If McStay's fit and ready, obviously that's the swap you make. But I wouldn't go against potentially bringing Nathan Kruger back into this team and giving him another shot inside 50. When we brought him in earlier this year, it was a real necessity in terms of a lack of tools, and clearly he was underdone, wasn't ready to go. Didn't bring him into the VFL, straight back in. Now that he's had some time back in the VFL, he's kicked some really big bags. He's been very important, but I feel like that might not be a bad idea to potentially find that opportunity and bring those two in. Do we go a little bit too tall by having that in? Who knows? But yeah, I think Johnson just needs just a little bit of a refresher. His talent's there. You can see the talent's there. It's about having that belief and confidence to go up and take some really big grabs, or have those 1% plays that we've seen from other players this year that can prove why he deserves to be in that 22. So it's just not working for him right now. Hopefully that can change a little bit throughout. So see how we go. Let's get to our votes from the game on the weekend, unless there was anything else from the match that you wanted to highlight.
No. We're perfect. All good, Nico.
All right, beautiful. What are your votes?
Let me just refresh myself. So my one vote goes to Josh. He played, we already spoke on him, but just unfortunately he's being overshadowed by the younger brother at the moment. But yeah, flying Josh is 2 votes. Mason Cox.
Interesting.
I thought, match winner at the end. We probably don't win the game without him in the last quarter, so he's got to get somewhere in there. But I thought he was pretty crucial early as well, and like I said, getting himself involved along the ground and little taps here and there. And even just when we're in transition a bit, he gets handed the ball and he's smart enough to know what to do with it, give the hands off to someone in a better position. So 2 votes for Coxie and 3 for Nick. He might be... If there was any doubt on his Brownlow chances, he's back. He's back in a big way.
Before I get to my votes, you had a nice little viral tweet go out this morning about backing up Coxie, which was nice to see.
Yeah, I've had to avoid the Twitter today because I've got the opposition coming for me.
Got them all coming. Yeah.
They really do hate him. They really do hate Coxie, which is unfortunate. I understand he can probably come across as a bit unlikable if you aren't a Collingwood supporter, but what he's brings to the game, it's exciting. It gets the crowd up and about. It's all in good sport. If you listen to him speak, nothing's serious. It's all in very good sport. Even he had a post a bit of a meme thing about Ben Keys taking the goggles off him and comparing it with I think it was a movie or a show or something. So it's all in good sport, and I think some people too many serious comments, but copping a bit of heat on Twitter today.
Lovely, that's what we like to see. No, when we had him on here, of course, this year, you could just tell by the way he talks and the way that he presents himself that's the type of guy he is. He always likes to have a bit of fun, wants that banter, wants to get involved, and like you said early in the show, Luke, it does pump the crowd up when he starts to get into the opposition's face. We all saw it with the Geelong game in the first round of the year. Just a bit of to and fro.
Even when we go back to the King's birthday, and with Petrarca, and that all blew up on social media. And then I think he had the post. He was on holidays, obviously, with the bye break, and his caption was "No beef here," or some little sly comment. So he's good value. And I think if he was at your club, you'd love him. But if he's not, you kind of don't.
And then wear the black and white stripes, Lukey. It doesn't matter who's in them. They'll always find a way. My votes very quickly. I gave 1 to Quainer for his performance on the weekend. I thought he was exceptional, as I mentioned in the pie that caught my eye. And then 2 and 3 were pretty simple for mine. Josh Dacos 2, Nick Dacos 3. Of course, we still get the fan votes rolling in for Sunday games, so be sure to get involved. If they're still open when you're listening to this, be sure to head around and get the votes. But I think you've got a fairly good idea who they might be giving 3 to. So he's only going to extend his lead on the Pies Nation Fan Award leaderboard. But speaking of the fans, we've got Ask Pies Nation coming up on the other side, as well as a nice little VFL wrap-up. So we'll be right back. This halftime break is brought to you by Liquorland. Enjoy winter your way with Liquorland, like Great Northern Super Crisp Lager bottles, available in singles, 6-packs, or slabs of 24. Don't mind a Great Northern, especially at the footy, but Liquorland have you all covered as well when you're not at the ground. Yeah,
honestly, probably my favourite drink at the moment, the Great Northern, and I got a few last week for my birthday, so thank you for your wishes last week, Nico. But Great Northern certainly goes down a treat.
Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online and click and collect in just 30 minutes. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Welcome back to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Let's not waste any time and get straight into Ask Pies Nation, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are absolutely everywhere, and not just everywhere, we're flying, aren't we? We're just getting followers left, right, and centre. So keep subscribing, keep following.
Yeah, the TikTok is really doing numbers.
You're on board, aren't you?
I've gone from anti-TikTok to I still don't really use it, but I've enjoyed how easy it's kind of blown up a bit without having to work too hard for it. So, well, we work hard for,
I was going to say, of course, we work hard.
These reels and videos. So, it's well earned.
But Ask Pies Nation this week, very simple one. We went back to a sort of generic Ask Pies Nation. Haven't done one of those in a while. And after a game like that, always good to get some balanced opinions from our loyal fans about not just the game at hand, but what the future looks like throughout 2023. So it's some interesting questions to fire away there, Lukey.
Yeah, good range, a lot of differing opinions, whether it's looking back or looking forward as well. I'll start with M Black 42. Thoughts on Cox's scoreboard impact as a hybrid ruck/forward? 13 goals in 9 games with 1 goalless game is a huge achievement, and something I didn't expect at the start of the year.
Yeah, that's a very great call, because we've seen Mason Cox as a just standalone forward, not really used too much in the ruck sense. Obviously, with Grundy there, didn't need to be used much. But yeah, for him to have that nice hybrid role, and to be fair, I questioned his ruck ability at the start of the year. I didn't know if he was going to be capable of having such an influence in that area, but he certainly has, and he's making the most of it too. As I mentioned, 13 goals throughout 2023 so far. That's already an impressive achievement. It's more than he kicked last year and the year before, and almost a career hideaway he's tracking at the minute. So, yeah, excellent to see him have an influence in all areas.
Ben White, I know we have this style of play, but do you think we're too much of a forward running team and don't have enough blokes that run both ways? It was really evident in that third quarter at the ground that there are a lot of blokes that didn't put in the effort to run the other way when the ball was turned over, which was similar in the Melbourne game the week before. I feel like yesterday, like the first game against Adelaide, they kicked straight early, they would have won.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting prospect to look at, because are they not running back because it's the system in play? Because if they then turn the ball back over, we're able to have the numbers up forward. It works and it doesn't work. And fortunately, it's worked a lot more often than it hasn't. So I think we have to take that into account, because when it comes off, it looks really great. But when it doesn't, and particularly there were times against Melbourne where it happened as well. So it's about finding that balance. Maybe we need to do a few more tweaks heading into the back end of the season, but I wouldn't be too overly concerned because the upside is very good. We are ranked number 2 in the comp over the last 4 weeks for points from turnovers. And that's been our whole game despite being down in other areas of the ground. So I think the system is still working. Whether we need to look at some personnel changes as well, that'll be a sign of things to come.
TDFO76, great to get the win and great to win 3 of the 4 quarters, but we got to do better in that one quarter we lose. I always like that we had strong starts and then we were able to control the game. The last 2 games we have lost control and run over and had to fight back yet again. Would love to see a 4-quarter effort. Feel we really miss Steele and Geordie in these games.
Yeah, Geordie to go is influence is so critical, and it's been shown over the last fortnight that he hasn't played in. And I reckon once he comes back, there might be a bit more consistency in that area of the ground. Not to mention Sybon, of course, when he comes back in, potentially McStay down the track as well. So, yeah, it'd be nice to play 4 quarters and win like that every week. We've got to know that that's not going to happen, and teams are going to come out and hunt us down. But yeah, as long as we keep winning at the moment, I think we need to, just look at that direction.
Lockie Chug 10, stoked to get the win, and please we can overcome hurdles, but does the way we were made to fight our way back concern you guys at all? As good as these wins are, I feel like we're at a point now where we can't keep putting ourselves in a position to have to come from behind, especially when we have a 5-goal lead at halftime. Does the way we were completely pulled apart in the third quarter concern you guys at all going forward?
Yeah, I think it does concern us a little bit, but the follow-up to that is, a team starting to find us out, you reckon, Luke?
Potentially, and that's where I've been saying that I haven't felt like we've had the control in games for probably a good 4 to 5 weeks. We've been still managing to get the wins, but yeah, the Melbourne game, I'm probably underselling how well we did probably play yesterday and had control for majority parts of it. Pretty much the whole second quarter and the whole fourth quarter. I thought the first quarter was probably 50-50, and then the third they had us on toast. So, it's whether they're finding us out a little or we're experimenting so much that we're leaving ourselves open to the opposition. So, as long as we can keep winning for now, that's the main thing. And I'll go into Hot Pies Daz, who speaks on a bit of this. My thoughts about not being able to stop momentum in that third quarter were overturned after listening to Fly in the post-match presser. We are still trying to find our best footy, and that we are trying to just qualify for finals right now. All these scenarios are preparing us for the real deal. Also, let's not forget no Geordie or Steele.
Yeah, and I think Jack mentioned it last week, or maybe after the Melbourne game, where you just listen to Fly post-game and you think, okay, they know what they're doing here. So it does give you a sense of calm, that's for sure. There's still ways that we need to get ourselves back on track in certain areas of our game, but no one's going to be perfect. We know Fly likes to embrace those imperfections, and as long as it keeps meaning we improve down the track, then can't complain too much down the line.
Tom Mello Magpies, we desperately need DeGoey back, especially yesterday against Dawson, who killed us in clearance, and DeGoey has that big body and height to match it with him. Yeah,
I mean, Mitchell has been great in the clearance work too. DeGoey's been pivotal in that area as well, but it was pretty clear without the goey in there, and our midfielders not firing in that department, particularly in that third quarter. It was a big struggle.
I was just going to, because my dad's been doing a bit of security work at the MCG, and he was right behind the Collingwood bench.
Shout out to Luke's dad.
And I was trying to find the comment he said about Craig McRae, but I found a couple that he said. But there was one about, he said the way he speaks to the players is just incredible. Like, it's just amazing. But
like Taylor Adams said, here, players coming into the club now, they're not worried about what coaches are going to say to them, and they actually treat them like adults. They praise their great work, and are able to sit them down and work on the things they need to improve. So it just goes to show how the culture's changed.
And
over
just
the last 12 months.
the high pressure of the game, the actual game, it's easy through the week and training, and but the pressure coming off when players are running off to go to the bench, and just that high pressure, and he just couldn't believe how well he spoke with them and the interactions they were having with each other. But then also said, I said, congratulations, Craig. He said, thanks, and gave me a thumbs up. So just even that
little
interaction,
like that. Nice.
Which is really nice from Craig. Captain Noob, John Noble and Isaac Quaynor were outstanding yesterday. They do not get the recognition that they deserve. Well, you should listen to the pod.
Absolutely we will. We're giving them all Australian status over here, so keep it up, boys.
Rob Impey, my two takeaways. Adelaide are far better than they are given credit for and will play finals. Some very good young players. Two, we are never beaten, and like all good teams, we'll find a way to win. Not our best game by a long way, but it puts another 4 points in the bank.
Yeah, they're such a talented team, Adelaide. And I mean, you look at Rankin and Rochelle as two, for example, that had they gotten off the chain, they probably win that as well. So, you look at that forward structure. Dawson in the midfield has been unreal for them in 2023. So, yeah, they're a side that I would expect to be playing finals football. But, it's something that will give us another learning experience leading into the pointy end of the year, I hope.
Yeah. Dracos 98. At the moment, the wins are papering over a few cracks in the midfield. In the opening 1 to 9 rounds, we were on top of opposition midfields, but we have dropped away in that regard. Selection has been interesting of late. I think we have a best 16 to 18, but struggling to find our best 23. Yeah,
and that's what Fly's been mentioning as well throughout his press conferences as well. What did you think of Bo coming as the sub and allowing the likes of Harrison and Johnson to keep their spot in the 22?
Well, I think he was probably just due for a bit of a rest, not a full 4 quarter. He's had that ankle issue a couple of weeks ago, but interesting. I didn't think he deserved to be dropped, so I assumed that he was always going to get put in as the sub, and it kind of worked out well that he only had to play the quarter, but I thought the impact he made straight away, the energy that he brought as soon as he come onto the field, and taking Ash off as a tactical just really worked in our favour. So good to give Harvey another full game. I thought he held himself up pretty well, and he's another that he's not doing anything wrong to go out. He probably will end up losing his spot, but doing enough to stay in there for now and contributing really well.
Well, I'll assume Bo's the one that takes it. Are you slightly concerned about Jack?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was completely forgotten that Jack wasn't even in the side yesterday, because he was in the side last week and then
completely out
the bye, and then was laid out, and it just kind of got forgotten that. I think a lot just assumed he was still on the side, and that's why he wasn't part of selection. And then he wasn't actually coming back into the team. So he's one that he's going to have to work pretty hard, I think, to get back in there and then stay in there.
We'll get to the VFL wrap too to see how he went, but go on.
Will Gustus, another cracking win, boys. Love this club. Question, though, going up against Gold Coast next week, do you think we'll need Frampton to cover an extra tour? Their seconds played well and wouldn't be too surprised to see Chol record. Cheers, guys. Love the pod.
VFL, the Gold Coast's VFL team are on top of the ladder.
So
they're flying at the moment. They pumped Box Hill, I think, over the weekend. So they're killing it. Yeah, I wouldn't be taking any risks, because you look at Chol and Casbolt last year and how well they did against us. Add Ben King to that. Add Jack Lukosius to that. That is a very dangerous looking forward line. And if we don't get on top of that, that's going to be a real struggle to comprehend. So I think Billy Frampton does come into this team, and maybe Markov's the one that comes out purely for a structure point of view. Not that he's done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But for in terms of utilising and matching up with the opposition at hand, that has to happen, I think, so it doesn't leave more too exposed. But that's my thoughts.
Deborah Lee Clayton, belief is another thing. They got in front, but our boys' desire prove proves a winner. Doesn't matter who you play, 4 points and top of the ladder. Magpie family happy.
Yeah, lovely. That's a nice little comment there.
And I'll finish with Andrew Campbell. I want to shout out Mason Cox from a player I didn't think had a spot in the team to a player I just adore every week. I love the aggro after a goal. Love the fact that he steps up in big moments. I think he's a much better player than he gets credit for. Not just a great story, but a great player.
Just emphasising your thoughts and words on him early in the pod, Lukey. Yeah, he's been awesome for us, hasn't he?
And like he said, that it's just, I think he's being undersold for what he's been able to do and how he's consistently been able to get better. Sort of even this year, just week in, week out. So he's gone from, he's a project player, but he's been
more than that now.
He's more than that now, and he's a genuine contributor to what is the top team on the ladder at the moment. So
that was AskPiesNation. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. Be sure to get involved every week on AskPiesNation. Now, this would be usually the time we go through our margin winners and our guest a crowd caller, but a bit of a unique situation here this week, Luke, because not only did we not get someone close to the margin, but after a couple of goes, we've got no guest a crowd comp winner this week.
Yeah, well, so we did have, I went through 3, and we had 1 to 2 probably pretty close, and then a third a bit further away, and then I reckon I was 4th closest. There are not many over 60,000, and ended up being 65,000, so a lot in the 40s and early 50s. But I'll give a shout out to Dave. He was unfortunately working and lives in Perth, so it was not suitable for him. We had STFan710. Also, I don't think they replied to me, so
listening.
I don't know why I gave them a shout out. And Blake Doughton, I think he was having a family dinner or a birthday that he couldn't miss, so he unfortunately was also unavailable. But we couldn't go. I can't go past 3, otherwise we're just giving them away. So.
Do you want your own little? You said you were 4th, so
well, I reckon I did pretty well. I think I was 63,000.
Not bad. 800
roughly. And it was 65.
No one expected that big of a crowd, but again, as we mentioned earlier in the pod, just goes to show how much us as fans always turn up to those big games.
Well, I sat in my seat about 12:50 early because we're used to the 3:20 games, and I was like, crowd's okay. But by start of the game, everyone just got in their seats, and it was huge.
So that's 3 games against interstate sides at the MCG this year where we've had 60,000 plus. That's exceptional.
Yeah.
Just so stupid how we're not playing Brisbane at the MCG, and it's a bloody marvel.
But they tried. Credit to them, they did try.
I know. It was my little rant like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it is frustrating, and that's going to genuinely be a top 4, top 2 kind of clash when we get to it. So,
and no one guessed the 2-point margin either, which I also found pretty fascinating. I must have thought this was going to be a pretty comfortable win in here.
Only cheaters trying to get in late, but no one tipped us by 2.
There you go.
I think people were expecting a bit of a more comfortable win, but
that's okay.
Nonetheless, we got the win.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the VFL report now. Obviously, this is Marcus's domain, but I will take over to begin with because we had a nice victory over the Sydney Swans at the AIA Centre on the weekend. Now, albeit the Swans have only won 1 game in the VFL, but still crucial for our finals chances that we were able to get that win. We moved to 6-5. As a result, 23 points, the final margin. We had 4 players kick 2 goals apiece, 3 from McInnes, Oscar Steen, and the 2 Tom Wilsons, one of them playing in his 150th game. The other one, of course, is part of our AFL list. So great to see them get on board. Trent Bianco, 29 touches. He's having a field day at the moment in the VFL. He's been brilliant for this side and just continues to go from strength to strength. He's averaging almost 24 touches a game. Almost averaging 5 marks and 3 tackles too. So he's been terrific. Jacob Ryan, a bit of a breakout game for him. So nice to see him get some valuable possessions as well. Finlay McRae finished with 24. So did Trey Rusco. So the AFL listed players are definitely making their mark at the moment. Just they haven't been able to get into this team. And as Taylor Adams mentioned on our pod last week, that it's not that they're doing anything wrong. They're just struggling to find a way to the guys in the 22 right now that are playing exceptional.
Well, it's just a fantastic position to be in, and you look at every premiership side across the journey, the reserves are always right up there as well, and making it incredibly hard to keep players in or take players out. It's just sort of that bottom 6 you're going to have some very unlucky ones come the end of the year. And hopefully, injury-wise, we can keep things pretty clean and it gets to that point where, we're just going to have, unfortunately, some unlucky ones, but everyone in that 22 or 23 is going to be real deserving of their spot. And who knows, we might have a few late bloomers that from the VFL that have been in there all year and end up like a Bianco or one of those boys that just get in there late and time their run really well, but everyone doing well from the names you mentioned.
A quick mention here for Serge's VFL reporters. We always like to get from him. Very simple one this week. Tom Wilson's 150th game, kicked 2 goals. Pies are good if ground pressure and running game are on. Responded well when challenged. Oscar Steen impressed, has good hands and a good kick. Joe Richards back, which was nice to see, and also a good spread of goal kickers. 10 individual goal kickers coming from our final score. Bianco, Ryan, Josh and Finn, our best. And next week we take on Frankston over at Franger. So anyone down that way, be sure to head over to see the Dolphins play the Magpies. They're 3-8 at the moment in 11 spots, so another opportunity for us to get an important win, that is for sure. VFLW, it's starting to get tight. We're into the final game of the season. We have moved up to 2nd spot, which is awesome to see, and that was after a 40-point win over Geelong on the weekend at the AIA Centre. The Cats were the ones lingering around that 6th, 7th mark. For us to get that win, it means we can't finish any lower than, I believe, well, I should say, technically we can still miss finals, despite being in 2nd spot, because between us in 2nd and Essendon in 7th, into top 6 in the VFLW, 2 points. 2 points separate 2nd and 7th coming into the last round of the season. Carlton can also technically make finals alongside North Melbourne, and the Kangaroos are in 9th. So it's just shown how close it is. So the Pies in 2nd spot, fingers crossed they're able to get through and get that final win of the season. They come up in the last game against North Melbourne, so a side that they're looking to get into that top 6. Hopefully the Pies are able to hold their nerve and get a big win. So it's all happening in the VFLW too, which is great to see.
Absolutely.
But we'll move on to a segment we always like to finish with for our episodes. Big game against the Gold Coast Suns up in Queensland. Now, before we get to the Monday headline, I don't know about you, but this is a team we genuinely struggle against when we play them up in the Gold Coast. We had some really tight contests. Last year, of course, needed a Will Hoskin-Elliott winner to get over the line, but there's just been so many games against the Suns up there in Queensland that we've really struggled to get a hold of.
And they're a real tricky side this year. I can't catch them in the footy tips. One week they look like, wow, they've really turned a corner here, and then the next they're back to, this is, Gold Coast footy, and they're really struggling. They're on the verge of the top 8 at the moment, so they're in some must-win kind of positions if they want to do qualifier. 28 points, and Adelaide's also on 28, and they're sitting in 8th. So, so it's an important game for us, but an incredibly important game for them coming up, and I'm sure they'll give us a real test.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. When I think of Collingwood playing in the Gold Coast, my mind will always revert to Clinton Young dropping that mark inside 50.
That's some dark days.
Oh, man. I think I genuinely cried that day when that happened. That was just bizarre. Anyway, more happier days ahead. Let's get to Monday headline from our Saturday twilight clash against the Suns. What are you leaning towards?
Sunday twilight or Saturday?
Sorry, Saturday twilight. Yep.
I thought it was Saturday. I'm not real specific, but Pies handle the Gold Coast heat.
Ooh.
It's 20 degrees on Saturday in the Gold Coast.
You want to give a margin?
A bit hotter. Pies by 20.
20. Okay.
But Gold Coast will give us a scare early.
Yep.
Survive that heat, weather, and the Gold Coast pressure, and we'll overcome it and cruise away to a 20-point win.
I'm going to go. We mentioned that Darcy Moore had a bit of a quieter game on the weekend. I reckon Moore keeps King goalless, and we win. He has kicked at least 1 goal in every game this year. Ben King, he's kicked 33 for the season. He's kicked 2, 1 and 3 in his last 3 games, but has had bags of 4 and 5 in 2023. I reckon Moore has a massive game. He's able to influence King enough that it stops him from getting on the scoreboard, and that's enough to see us win. So
very good, Nico.
I'll take that. And hopefully
if that happens, we're almost certain to win. So.
We'll see how we go for that. That's all we've got time for on this week's episode of the Pies Nation podcast. Lukey, Great to have you in the studio to chat about yet another win from these mighty Magpies.
Absolutely, Nico. Thank you as well, and happy 99 to myself.
Big 100 next week.
I'll make sure I'm definitely here for that.
Actually, before we wrap up, it was your birthday last week, Lukey, so
Wednesday,
happy
yes.
birthday.
Thank you.
Did you get up to much across the week?
Just out in the city on Saturday with my partner,
Nice.
and spent some time together, and then the footy on Sunday. A few great Northerns thanks to Liquorland. But yeah, a pretty low key one, but a nice birthday. 25, so I'm really
25,
getting old now.
No, don't say that.
And that was the funny thing that I missed last week with Taylor. I spoke to him post the pod about it, but for everyone out there, I might as well tell the story now.
Go on.
It was my 18th birthday when I got a phone call, and Dad's like, "Here, someone ringing for you," and it was Taylor Adams on the other end on a video call and just wishing me a happy birthday. We had a family friend. We had a contact through to him, so yeah, it was just a little bit of a full circle that he had him on the podcast last week, a couple of days before my 25th birthday. 7 years difference, but Taylor has always been a ripper guy, and we thank him immensely for coming on last week.
If you enjoyed that content, be sure to get involved with Pies Nation. Be sure to follow on all our social media pages, subscribe. We've got a tip jar that you can find on our Instagram bio, so be sure to get involved. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us that 5-star rating, and be sure to continue to get involved with
wherever you can, support the potty with some merch or anything you can send through our way. We appreciate it, and we love all your support, and it's just getting bigger and better every week. So as long as the Pies keep winning, we'll keep
Nothing will stop us.
Yes.
Nothing will stop us. But until next week, I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Thanks for listening to the Pies Nation podcast, and thanks to Liquorland, who are proud partners of the show. Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online to pick up all your favourites just in time for the game. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly.